Hello, everyone, and welcome to our 44th episode of In the Trenches, Kroll's weekly cyber threat intelligence briefing. Today is April 2nd, and my name is Keith Wojcicki, Global Head of Threat Intelligence. We are joined today by Dave Truman, Ryan Hicks, Mukesh Nagar, Sarah Becker, and George Glass, all from our cyber threat intelligence team. We'll be covering the most recent trends that our threat intelligence team is witnessing in the trenches. So let's talk news you can use for April 2nd. So the moon, malware groups, kind of crazy with the numbers we have here. A multi-year campaign has been exploiting the moon malware to target the obsolete small business routers and IoT devices for criminal proxy service called Faceless. This malware has silently grown to over 40,000 bots across 88 separate countries. Recently, Faceless aggressively targeted over 6,000 ASUS routers in just 72 hours. This just shows the rapid user growth and popularity among the cyber criminals for anonymity. This trend also highlights a larger issue of outdated unmanned IoT devices becoming prime targets for cybercrime, including DDoS attacks. So experts have stressed the need for for automated updates and the eradication of malicious bots from the devices to curb the spread of cyber threats. This statement echoed in the wake of the FBI's actions against APT28's router attacks. It really underscores the critical vulnerability of aging network infrastructure. Secondly, we're seeing PyPy has a little hiccup here. PyPy experienced a suspension of new user registration and project creations on March 28th due to a malware upload campaign. The suspension lasted 10 hours and was a response to the discovery of multiple malicious packages aimed at stealing crypto wallets, browser data, and other credentials throughout typo squatting attacks. So researchers have identified over 220 packages designated to persist throughout reboots and steal sensitive information from the victims. This incident highlights the continuous cybersecurity threats facing software development and the open source ecosystem, marking the second time this year that PyPy had to halt registrations and project creations due to malware concerns. Similar disruptions occurred throughout the last year of 2023 and highlights the vulnerabilities of open source package repositories and malware attacks. PyPy has since introduced a direct reporting feature for malware packages to enhance its security. You have the growing concerns over the misuse of software repositories for cybercrime and espionage. So just kind of keep an eye out for any type of work that you're working with PyPy. If you have any questions or concerns, please contact Kroll at cti@kroll.com. Now let's get into today's briefing. Today we're going to cover the following trends our team is concentrating on. We're going to talk about a new supply chain attack, get into Tycoon 2FA, go into GoLoader pushes a new info stealer, and malware spotlight, of course, with Ryan Hicks. And we can never leave out our in-house expert, Sarah Becker, with her ransomware roundup. With that, George, luckily an engineer identified a backdoor, and this seems to be a bigger than a garage door. So can you elaborate for us a little bit on this?
Yeah, sure, Keith. Yeah, some really interesting breaking news from the long weekend here. Something that we've been tracking over the weekend, and just kind of put this intelligence briefing together today. What appears to be a multi-year campaign to introduce a backdoor, successfully, I might add, into the XZUtils library, which is an open source library. Which is used by a number of Linux tools. It's a data compression tool, but one of those that is used by is OpenSSH, and it appears that a particular threat actor by the name of GRT75 took a very highly persistent social engineering campaign and sophisticated code deployment to the project to install this backdoor and generate SSH, a connection SSHD in Linux. The malicious code was installed over a long period of time, not quite over 3 years. It took 3 years to gain trust and deploy this code, but nevertheless, versions 5.6.0 and 5.6.1 of the XZUtils project is vulnerable. At build time, the backdoor is generated, and this is being tracked as CVE 2024-3094. CVSS score of 10. Now, as you said, the backdoor was discovered by members of the security community. An engineer at Microsoft discovered this SSH connection was taking a suspiciously long amount of time, and thankfully investigated, thus discovering that the fact that this backdoor existed. It appears so far, this may change, but so far, according to Red Hat, Fedora Rawhide, Fedora 41, some Debian distributions, and I want to emphasize the fact that this is for testing, unstable and experimental distributions. The versions there on the screen are using impacted versions of executils, as well as OpenSUSE Tumbleweed and Micro OS and Kali Linux. So if you're running those operating systems, those distributions, be wary of the fact that they are potentially running the executils version that contains the backdoor. Cease using them and prepare to roll back the executils binary to a known safe version, or wait for cease using them and wait for an update to the package to remove the backdoor. If we go to the next slide, I'll just run through some of the sophistication of this campaign. This is included in our weekly report in more detail, but I just wanted to really focus on the fact that this attack started when GRT75 created a GitHub account in January 26 of 2021. Now, at the time, we don't believe that this account was taken over. We believe that this account was set up for this attack. They start committing to private repositories, so on and so forth, and then over the years, they gain the trust of the sole contributor and sole maintainer of the executils library and repository on GitHub. That's a very stressful, selfless job to do, and it would appear that a number of personas essentially start to harass the maintainer of this project. GRT75 is then there to offer help and support, and so over time gains the trust of the contributors and the community for this project. And it's from there, from around January of 2023, that they can start committing malicious code to the repository. And I just want to make this perfectly clear. We don't really have the time to go into the full technical details of this attack now. I'm sure we can some other time, but this is a very sophisticated way of exploiting this this application, this project. You won't see the malicious code in the Git repository itself. You can see some artifacts of it and some of the second stage payload generation in there. And yes, it does look malicious, but a number of the actual malicious actions that take place happen at build time in the tarballs that are downloaded and run on the machine when you do an RPM update or something like that on a Debian distribution. That is when a lot of the malicious activity takes place, and so for a maintainer, that may be hard to detect, and especially a single maintainer of a repository that's doing this. So I think, you know, the timeline is there for you to see. This is a highly sophisticated social engineering and code deployment campaign to backdoor these processes. It was discovered and remediated very quickly within a month. So from February 24th, the backdoor was there until March the 29th. It could have been a lot worse than it was and affected a lot more systems than it did. Thankfully, it didn't. But I think the main takeaway from this is the state of supply chain, software supply chain in 2024 isn't quite what everyone thinks it is, especially for single maintainers of highly distributed, highly used utilities and libraries, especially in the Linux ecosystem. that is something that we need to take a look at, I think, this year. I think we've mentioned that quite a few times before in our quarterly briefings and so on. But I think that's the main takeaway from this. It's likely that not many people are affected, and yeah, thankfully the malicious code was only there for a short amount of time. But with that, I'll hand back to you for now. I'm sure we'll have more updates on this in the weeks to come.
Thank you so much, George. Really appreciate that update. So Dave, phishing never gets old. As you're about to explain, there is an adversary in the middle phishing kit used by multiple threat actors since August of last year, but it got an update. Can you let us know what you're working on?
Yep. Researchers at Sequoia have released an article covering the Tycoon 2FA phishing kit. This kit was first discovered in late 2023, and according to Sequoia, has a new version that has been seen recently. The kit is identifiable by the file names used for its JavaScript and cascading style sheets, along with its use of WebSockets and Cloudflare's capture alternative, Turnstile. The phishing kit is sold and marketed via Telegram and comes with a professional-looking administration panel. The panel has a striking resemblance to the DadSec OTT phishing kit, a kit which saw its source code leaked and is perhaps the basis for Tycoon. The key aspect of Tycoon in gaining access to multi-factor protected cloud environments such as Microsoft or Gmail is its ability to act as a live proxy, capturing input from the user and then immediately logging into those environments and relaying back and forth any two-factor requests it receives. Educating users against clicking suspicious links and to check any login pages that might seem legitimate, show the correct domain in the address bar of the browser might help lower the risk of threat and should be combined with good perimeter email scanning. Thank you. Keith?
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate the overview. Vikesh, we had discussed malware in Google Ads earlier last year, but you have a new risk to malvertising that is different and difficult to detect. Can you brief us on this new campaign?
Of course. So, researchers over at Malware have also uncovered a malvertising campaign, which we did cover very recently before, which employs a sophisticated phishing campaign, mainly targeted towards administrators by impersonating the homepage of a popular SSH and telnet client tool called Putty. They've done this through the use of Google adverts that appear at the top of Google search results. Now, these adverts are created by the actors, and sole purpose is to redirect users to the fake Putty site, which would then auto-initiate a download of the malicious executable, which has been disguised as putty.exe. Now, the process involves a two-step redirection chain that we've not commonly seen in malicious operations. However, it's designed to filter victims and minimize detection risk from auto-generated sort of online URL scanners. Once the application has been downloaded and executed onto the victim's device, the dropper connects to checks if there's a public IP to that device, and then checks if there's a way for the malicious actor to gain access into it. Following the verification, the loader then communicates with an external C2 server and then continues to download the RHADAMANTHYS info stealer. The download takes place using SSH version 2 protocol, so it sort of hides within normal traffic as well. If a network engineer or network administrator was looking at it, they wouldn't really see it unless they analyzed the IP address and all connections of the SSH. The stealer, as we've covered before, has a lot of capabilities and functionalities of data exfiltration and well as harvesting credentials whilst evading standard antivirus detection. One interesting note is that this application has been written in the Go programming language, which a lot of threat actors have been leaning towards. This is mainly due to the portability as well as the invasion techniques that the Go language offers. What we do recommend is that all users to employ a robust endpoint security solution, whether this be an endpoint detection and response solution or a next-gen antivirus solution, in order to prevent and detect these sort of malicious applications within their environment. Educate all users within the organizations with the risk of malvertising, as well as giving campaign examples that have been seen previously, as well as encouraging the use of official websites and direct downloads from verified publishers to minimize the risk of encountering malicious adverts. That's all from me, Keith. Thank you.
Thanks, Vikesh, for the great intel. Now let's dive into our Malware Chronicles with Ryan Hicks. Ryan?
Thanks, Keith. So yeah, this week looking at STRELASTEALER, so which is an information stealer targeting email login data, and that data is then exfiltrated back to the threat actor and used to perform additional attacks. It's been observed in the wild since 2022, but has had regular updates to its defense evasion and anti-analysis techniques quite recently. And throughout the beginning of this year, Palo Alto reported on a large-scale campaign targeting over 100 organizations across the EU and the US, across a variety of sectors that you see along the top there. So looking at kind of initial access from the attack diagram, it's been observed to be deployed through phishing emails via attachments, and the theme of the phishing emails, as well as the kind of files that are attached, appear to vary between campaigns, likely in an effort to evade sort of signature-based detections between campaigns. And in the newer campaigns that you see along the bottom of the attack chain there, the attachment on the phishing email is typically a zip file that contains a JavaScript file. And when executed, the JavaScript file drops a base64 encoded file and a batch file. And then the encoded file is decoded with certutil, which leads to the creation of the DLL file, which is the STRELASTEALER payload itself. And the older attack path along the top is what was first seen in 2022, and in that older case, it was previously seen being distributed via ISO files with both a LNK and an HTML file, both again leading to the STRELASTEALER payload. In terms of defense evasion that I mentioned previously, kind of evolving to obfuscate itself in the newer versions during static and sandbox analysis. It contains excessively long code blocks, performing many instructions that don't actually do anything for the kind of functionality of the malware, and this likely serves as a method to perhaps both time out sandbox detonations, and as well as making it quite complex to manually read and analyze when doing static analysis. And as I mentioned, that obfuscation is only present in newer versions, highlighting what I mentioned about how it's had evolving tactics since 2022. And just kind of mentioned a few sort of detection or hunting opportunities here, which are relatively straightforward, I guess, in terms of the kind of the attack chain. So looking at JavaScript files executed from within zips, JavaScript files dropping and executing batch files, a batch file running certutil commands, followed by DLL. So that kind of chain of events is really interesting to be able to hunt for. And then lastly, kind of more likely for threat hunting activities is looking for run DLL 32 executing unknown DLL files. Again, for the kind of threat hunting where if you're able to sort results by the kind of least occurring DLLs that are being run, you may be able to see kind of any kind of unique DLLs there to be able to highlight those that are unknown in the environment. So that's all for me. I'll hand back to you, Keith.
Thanks, Ryan. Really appreciate the review. Now to the ransomware expert, Sarah Becker. Sarah, lately you've been seeing a strategic play by ransomware groups. Can you let us know what you've been witnessing?
Yeah, of course, Keith. So just going through many of the data leak sites that we monitor daily, I noticed that a lot of the ransomware groups are not only, posting various victim organizations on different days, but they are bulk posting victims, and it's not only one group. And it seems to have been kind of standing out a little bit more of this month of March 2024. And I listed the groups, the RA World, which is a new group that we reported on last week. They are the rebrand of RA Group. On March 30th, they had approximately 30 victim postings, and this is again just in one day. Sometimes these ransomware groups will post 8 victims one day, maybe 5 another. So these are just all happening in one concurrent day. Play is another ransomware group that we've seen. March 27th, they posted approximately 13 victims. And then on March 11th, they posted approximately 16 victims. And then another ransomware group that we observed doing this kind of bulk ransomware victim postings is Black Basta. On March 27th, they posted 17 victims. So it's not confirmed if these attacks were all consistently conducted around the same time, or if these ransomware groups are maybe catching up on previous victim postings. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that of who the victims are or what organizations or sectors, and kind of seeing if it's tying back to one specific vulnerability or one specific incident. So we are monitoring this, and that is all for me, Keith.
Thank you, Sarah, for the amazing work and cutting edge intel. So with that, today is the day after Dingus Day, which is the Monday after Easter. So this is a Polish tradition that young male farmers sought to capture the attention of girls they fancied or liked. And part of this tradition, they would douse girls with water and gently swat their legs with pussy willows. Now, obviously, this is back in the day. The more chivalrous young men would opt to sprinkle the girls with a little bit of cologne rather than water. In response, the girls would retaliate by hurling dishes and pottery, marking that today. So today is the day that the girls will be hurling dishes and pottery at the men that they love. Weird, I know. So this is to mimic the boys' playful action. So those that still practice tradition, watch out. So I would like to thank everybody that's taken the time to tune into Kroll's weekly cyber threat intel briefing. We hope you found the session informative. If you have any follow-up questions about the briefing or any other questions, please contact the Kroll CTI team at CTI@Kroll.com. That's CTI@Kroll.com. I hope everyone has a wonderful day and see you next week at our briefing. Take care.